Hello guys, this is Jade Blecklig. I'm trying something a little bit new today in the discussion. I know I'm a bit late. I do apologize for that. However, this week's assignment we were to be looking at examples of copyright infringement or use of fonts or things of that nature. And I came up with a couple things that to me were a little bit disturbing, but something I actually noticed for a really long time, and it's something that most people don't really take notice of too much. Going through and looking through, what is an intellectual property? We're looking at copyright, and it says here, copyright is a legal term used to describe the rights that creators have over their literary and artistic works. And this was by the World Intellectual Property Organization. And so it is an IP. A copyright does have to do with an intellectual property, or that's something that belongs to somebody else. More along those lines in Creative Commons, most IPs also require you to have a license. And so what a license is generally, as we all know by reading, is that license means that you are giving somebody permission to use a part of your work for some reason for a certain amount of times. It could be a lot of different things, which is usually determined by your contract. But also in AIGA, Copyright Basics for Designers, it talks a lot about the copyright. However, I did notice something. Copyright is more than just a simple item. Copyright can also take the form of plagiarism. And if we all know what plagiarism is when we take the words of somebody else, either by paraphrasing or by direct copy words of somebody else and place them as our own without giving any kind of credit to that person. And strangely enough, as I was reading through the AIGA site, here we see copyright basics for graphic designers. As we were reading, I noticed something down here. Who is liable for infringement? And if we read this entire paragraph, it says any person or entity involved in the unauthorized use of a copyrighted work from the initial copying through the publication distribution is liable for infringement. There's a part in here. Now, all of this is actually plagiarized. I know that sounds very strange, but it's a paraphrase with actual direct quotes from a specific person, and it's also on another website. And I did speak briefly about this to the professor just to see Professor Cleveland's opinion on it. And the thing that I came up with, if we read through here, for example, in one case where a photograph was used in a comp without permission, the photographer sued the ad agency and the agency's client for whom the ad was created. Now all of this is paraphrased, but who said it? Then we have the court awarded the photographer $2,750 in actual damages, the fee he would have charged had he been given the final assignment, $57,358 for the ad agency's net revenue earned from the project, his attorney's fees, and an injunction preventing further use of infringing ads. This whole thing is a direct quote, and not from one specific place, from a couple. This was actually stated by a lawyer from the Graphic Artists Guild word for word, and it is documented word for word on their website. So if we went to Comping an Infringement by Linda Joy Catwinkle, Esquire, she is the lawyer who stated this, and you scroll down almost towards the bottom, you can actually see the direct quote. He was awarded $27.50 in actual damages. The fee Curtis would have charged had he been given the final assignment. $57,358 for Wise's net revenue earned from the project and his attorney's fees, as well as an injunction in recalling the infringing ads. So what this person did was literally copy this word for word and simply change Curtis and Weiss, which was as you can see here, was replaced with a generic noun, photographer, and ad agency. So this person copied directly word for word. This is a form of plagiarism and is a copyright infringement in a way, according to what I was reading. And this person who wrote this from AIGA, now it says that she wrote it here about the author. Now she was the one who wrote it here, but she's also not giving herself credit. So although she did write it in both places, it's still kind of like she's jumping on her own bandwagon. So in this case, it's kind of I would guess, into my mind, I'm like, ooh, this isn't good. It's directly it's a directly word for word, what this person said. Now, she's the one who said it, but at the same time, it's also listed over here. So I'm wondering in the long run, which one of these came first? So this one was in 2006, and this one was a year later. So this one came after. So this says it was first published in Step Inside Design, July, August 2007. Now, it's kind of up in the air. I don't know if this would necessarily, because she's the person who wrote it, was absolutely infringement of any kind, or if it's simply just her paraphrasing herself. But in that case, wouldn't we still give credit to ourselves or to the particular item where we pulled it from? Because it's very possible she might remember this, but to be so close to what she's written before, it was obviously written somewhere else. So she should also be giving credit to the publisher who published it. So there's no in-text citation. So it's just something that I just happened to come across. Now, the primary thing that I'm actually looking at is actually not this, but it is a trademark and a copyright infringement. And it has to do with our social media icons. So everybody knows social media icons, right? We see them all the time, everywhere. But what happens when we look at different websites? For example, let's just go to, I don't know. How about we just go to, okay, you know what? And this is going to be funny. So let's look up designers' websites, for example. So we're looking at best graphic design websites and things like that, and see if there's any social media icons anywhere on here. It's something that I happen to be seeing a lot. Okay, here we go. We see all these icons here. It's funny to note, but each of these icons is actually in direct violation of each of these companies' brand assets. So in essence, what's happening is all of these here should actually be removed. Because if you go to any of those websites, any of those companies' websites, you can look them up, LinkedIn, Twitter, these are actually the different icons that should be used. And every brand spends a lot of money developing their own specific look of things, and they spend a lot of time going over the colors that they want to use and how they want to be placed. This is their brand. This is how they want to be represented. However, on this interesting Design Justice that I was looking up, Managing Social Media Brands Must Be a Total Nightmare, goes into a lot of detail about how these are used, and that there are some arguments that say, for example, here, this gentleman in a recent post on Fast Code Designs, when your fans hack your brands, praise them. William Allen of Behance makes the argument that remixing a brand's intellectual property for non-commercial use should not be considered stealing or copyright infringement, but rather an homage and a compliment of the highest order. Oh, and free advertising for the brand, of course. Now, that's great, and that generally is how most designers look at things, but most brand owners, again, they see things differently, as they talk about here. A lot of the pages for their brands, they require licensing, but as noticed by the author here, who is, I'm not really sure who the author of this particular article is. It's kind of interesting. Not Debbie Davis. I'm not really sure who wrote the article itself. It's a great article. However, they go into notice that a lot of the companies take a humorous approach, and some take a very direct approach. Some require licenses to use the logos. Others use more humor, such as Skype. If you see in their brand guidelines, they say our logo is our most valuable asset. We must treat it nicely, never abuse our logo. It doesn't have arms, so it can't fight back. Now, generally, as they say here, whether we like it or not, brands spend a lot of time and money developing the products and brand image they want, and no one but them has the right to modify it or for profit or profit from it without their permission and or a licensing fee. So it's really up to them. The thing that's really happening commonly, though, is that we're seeing these kind of things pop up everywhere. And it begs the question in my mind, is it really worth, there's an old adage that says, pick and choose your battles. So I'm wondering, is it really worth fighting this battle. Think about all the websites that use these multicolored or different styled, icons. Is it really worth the battle of going after each and every single person if the logo is recognizable? Technically, they have the right to do so because this is their trademark and it's being used incorrectly. For example, let's look up Twitter. Now, so the easiest way to look these up, simply to go to Google and type in Twitter brand assets. And if you see here, it says brand assets and guides. Okay, so let's take a look about this, about Twitter. So here it says our logo is either blue or white. The Twitter bird is never shown in black or any other colors. Here, right away, we see the violation. The Twitter bird is never shown in black or other colors. It's black, but clearly stated here that it should not be that way. So it begs the question, should large companies go after these companies? Is it really profitable, or is it really equitable? Is it really in their best interest to consistently go after people for using their icons in the incorrect way? It also, I would say, it begs the question too, why would people spend so much money and time then on specific color sets for their logo? Is it really necessary, or should they just create the icon and allow people to color it the way they choose? It's a pretty good question. So besides that, the only thing I could really stress is that we as the design community, the only way that we can avoid lawsuits, because quite honestly, any of these companies could go after any person incorrectly using their logo. And you can see examples up here, all of these are all incorrect. You can't use them like that. Will often see the Twitter bird and the F in a circle, or the IN for in LinkedIn in a circle. These are all incorrect because they're not following these brand guidelines. So how best could we change this in order to really make it effective? Well, honestly, I think the only thing that we can do as a design community going forward is really be mindful and educate other people. Please be mindful that when you use this, you must use it in this way. As I work for Fulton County government, they actually received several cease and desist letters from Twitter and Facebook and Pinterest, even YouTube and Google Plus, for all using their icons online in the incorrect manner. I went through and I looked them all up and I created an asset folder for them. And what I noticed that with every 3, 6, or 12 months, all of these logos change. So I always tend to go every 3 months or every 6 months and just look at them again, see if they've changed, and add them to the asset folder correctly to replace the old ones. I find that this is the best way that we, going forward as a design community, can really help ourselves out and avoid any kind of conflicts in the future. Thanks again, everybody, and I hope you have a good night.